A few years back I got this running, but it's been sitting since then. Long enough that a tree grew up behind it. Trees grew up through it, right there. And a couple of small trees grew up in the seat itself. So this is sort of its own ecosystem here at this point, but the tires still hold air. Before this thing completely returns to nature, I'm going to try to get it fired up again and get it out of here. The old boat tank I'd used on this looks pretty rusty now, so I'm going to plumb in a completely new fuel system. There, new fuel system's done. There's a primer bulb in here, so that makes priming the carburetor easy. Yep, we're getting fuel. Apparently the primer bulb's coming apart, but it's working. Pump it till we feel like the float seats. We have a full carburetor. I think I hear leaking over there. There is fuel pouring out of the fuel pump. So that's a good indication the fuel pump's full. It doesn't look like a connection. It looks like it's just pouring out. So obviously there's fuel to the fuel pump. So we're just going to leave that as is for now. See if this thing starts. I see a little bit of wetness on the carburetor, so we might very well have fuel up in here too. This machine uses a Chrysler Slant 6 engine. Normally they're pretty easy to get running. Gonna try adding a squirt of starting fluid. I've got the Pro Model spark tester with the adjustable gap on it. Let's see how this does. I saw a spark. Apparently not enough to get the engine running. A little more investigation is needed. I know I have spark, but it's not firing with the starting fluid in the carb. So maybe the ignition is weak. I'm looking here. I notice there's a ballast resistor. Now normally those are used to give full power for starting and then reduced voltage to the coil for running. I found this nice diagram online showing you how a ballast resistor is supposed to be hooked up. The resistor is only used when the ignition is in the on position. When it's in the start position, the coil should be getting straight power right from the starter or starter solenoid. So you need two wires going to the coil. There's no extra wire. That gives reduced voltage to the coil all the time. So I'm going to take a jumper lead and go from the power in directly to the coil. So now we should have more coil voltage. That seems okay. That's better. Now we got to figure out the fuel situation. I just disconnected the fuel pump entirely and ran the line with the primer bulb straight to the filter. And now the primer bulb is our fuel pump. I'm assuming the float's stuck. This is the preferred repair technique. The type of hammer is optional. It's running. There's oil pressure. This fuel pump may become inconvenient. Everything was going according to plan, except the machine didn't want to move at all. I could feel the shuttle shift transmission engage, and it tried to turn the drive shafts, but it just didn't go anywhere. It's trying to move. I also found that hydraulic leak I forgot about from last time. Gonna have to get a new hose too. I tried turning the tires to get them out of the holes in the ground they'd sunk into. Still nothing. And I kept running the carb out of fuel. A hand pump on the other side of the vehicle wasn't the best idea. I moved the fuel tank and pump into a nice convenient location underfoot, so that'll be handy. And then I noticed that is a big transfer case-like thing. The transfer case has an input shaft, then a counter shaft, then another counter shaft, and then the output. It looks like it might be a double reduction with a high and low in one and a high and low in another. And has two levers, which go to these levers. Some plates that I can't read. Oh, that's not helpful at all. I moved the levers randomly, and all of a sudden I had more torque. I couldn't get this from the camera angle I was on. That wheel is locked up and just pushed this mound of dirt forward when I went forward. When I went backwards, it actually broke free. I got it out. There appears to be a lot of growth attached to it, but that's okay. Airing up the tires. I have no idea how much they're supposed to have, but I'm kind of leery of putting too much pressure on them. Since that fuel pump was leaking like crazy, I checked the oil. It's way over full. We're going to play my favorite game, What's in My Oil Pan? See if I can actually make one of these wrenches useful. Nope. Real wrench to the rescue. I got a 5-gallon bucket under here. Hopefully I got it in the right spot. Looks like oil, smells like gas. Good thing we're dumping this. New fuel pumps in, oil's changed. Another new fuel system installed, this time with a lot more capacity. Let's pump this thing up. I really like primer bulbs for this. Connect power. Probably should attach that someday. As long as I don't move any of these levers, I shouldn't lose any hydraulic fluid. Well, keep an eye on this new fuel pump. I haven't had a whole lot of good luck with new fuel pumps, but hopefully it works. We're getting oil pressure. That's good. I don't see any pump leaks. I don't see any overflowing in the carb. We might be pretty functional here. Now I just need to get that hydraulic hose and we can really test this thing out. There's the hose we need. Now we just have to figure out how to get it out of there. I traced it back to this hose, where in the control valve. Now we're going to see if we can remove that. Oh, I feel something turning. One nice thing about hydraulics, they're usually well oiled. Not a whole lot of room for a wrench here. Yeah, it's turning. I felt it move. The biggest problem I'm having is I can turn it a little bit. I can't actually take the wrench off because the hose next to it. So I'm hoping that's a good solid connection. I'm just twisting the wrench and bending this one. Basically I have to flex each line next to it in order to get the wrench on and off. But seems to be working. Just hope I don't damage anything else while I'm doing this. Now that it broke off, I can grab the end with the pliers. So we're making real progress. The old one's out. I got my new hose made. Had it made at Napa. I was telling you about the problem of being able to turn it just a little bit. They actually let me come in the back and look at the different fittings before they put it together. And they did have one that had a narrow collar right next to the hex. So I was able to slide the wrench onto the collar and turn it, then get another bite on it. So that went in pretty easy. While I'm here, I'm going to check the coolant. That cap is not pleasant to work with. You get this shield in the way here. Keeps you from actually turning the cap properly. And you get this thing off of here. There we go. Alright. It's up to the top and very green, so I'm going to call that good. And hopefully never have to check this again. I'm also going to add a little more hydraulic fluid, because I know I lost some. This machine was not made for ease of maintenance. Now, how do I get down? There's a lot of hydraulics on this thing. Now there's a few little lumps of rust here. I just want to make it as smooth as possible before it actually goes through these seals. You might not even expect those. There's a cylinder on this side and another cylinder on this side, and they actually tilt the entire machine. This lever tilts the machine. I think I got it back to level. You can always adjust it when you drive. Then you have the upper mess, which is all a unit with a whole bunch of functions. All the upper hydraulics on these controls, this whole framework actually rides inside those C channels. These are the rollers in there. And this whole assembly, with the boom and everything, can slide backwards and forwards. So that gives you some fore and aft movement. Of course, you have a couple cylinders to lift the whole assembly up. This goes really slow. Let's speed it up. Then you got another cylinder to do the tilting. There's a small cylinder up here on the forks, and that cylinder allows the entire set of forks to pivot around that point right there. Like a regular forklift, this mast operates up and down. This is another slow one. Let's speed it up too. It was still going up, but the tilt started moving on its own, so I decided it was time to come back down. One kind of interesting thing is these are all in quick disconnects. So this little forklift end is actually an attachment that can be removed and something else put in its place. The steering is fully hydraulic. You got a hydraulic cylinder on each wheel, connected by a fairly sturdy tie rod. That's pretty close to 2-inch diameter. You have hydraulic steering not just in the front, but also on the rear wheels. There's 2 cylinders again with another good-sized tie rod. Here you have a selector for how the steering works. You either have crab steer. In this mode, both the front and rear wheels turn the same direction, so you can go sideways. Front steering only. This mode locks out the rear steering and only steers the fronts, just like a normal car or truck. Or opposite steer. In this mode, turning the steering wheel turns the front and rear wheels opposite directions, so you can make real sharp corners. This thing's fun to drive. Besides being fun to drive, these lulls are also useful. Usually used in construction sites to lift materials up to high locations, they've been built since 1959 in various forms, all the way up to 2014. I scrolled through online manuals until I found this Model 400, which looks like it, and I found the operator's manual showing it lifts 4,000 pounds 34 feet in the air, and has some nifty hand signals. Let's get back to the actual machine. Now I want to figure out this transfer case. This is the gear I was in when I got it out. The shaft out of the shovel shift turns really fast compared to the output shaft to the axles. Move one lever, and it looks like it's turning about twice as fast. Move the other lever, it looks like they're going the same speed. We'll leave it in low, low. It's got lots of power now. Some trees here. Made it. I got fall falling on me. Oh, got a tiny bit of fall on the camera. Better steering moves. There we go. Got the rear wheels pointed opposite the front. Now we can make a good turning circle here. Wonder if the brakes work. The term work is relative. They did slow it down slightly if it wasn't downhill and it wasn't in gear. The brakes might slow it down slightly, but they sure don't stop it. But that's okay, because I was at the spot where I had a job that needed to be done. I had to reach over a pile of debris and pick up a frame off the ground to get to something under it. It's kind of like fishing. You lift up with a rod, then you reel it in. Got ourselves a trophy here. Let's try to land it in the boat. It's a fighter. We'll get it there though. So today we landed ourselves a 300-pound cast iron transmission and transfer case. It's almost suitable for wall mounting. Or truck mounting. I think that'll be better. This fore and aft movement on the forks is really handy. I wish all forklifts had that. Things were going well, so I moved on to the next job. next job was a little trickier. I had to remove this 3/4 ton Dodge frame section with engine through transfer case and get it out past my sister's Camaro without damaging it, or at least any damage she'd notice. Emergency brake cable, steel toe boots, all the steering modes and fork movements make this thing surprisingly maneuverable. I took the frame section off the chain and picked it up with the forks to make it a little more stable. I had a pretty good distance to drive back. I've got to drive with one hand holding the tilt back in order to keep that thing level. But the good thing about that is it acts like an engine brake. The regular brakes are real iffy, so by holding this tilt back, it's slowing the engine down, which is helping a lot. So it's a bonus. The only problem is, I still got to steer. As soon as I let go of the tilt, I'm gonna have to put you guys down for a little bit. Haven't even run out of gas yet. Kind of expect it to run out. I think I only put like 3 gallons in this thing. Apparently it's pretty efficient. I kept going and doing a few other tasks that needed to be done. It was very handy. I found a better parking spot for this. It's a lot easier access. I'll be able to move it around regularly so it doesn't go back into nature. That's it for this video. That thing sat for enough years for trees to grow up behind it. With a little minor fixing, it's working great and doing useful stuff. I gotta go have some more fun loading. Hope you guys are having fun too. We'll see you next time. Even kept that tree alive. This tree kind of survived a little. This one's doing pretty well. I think it'll keep growing out of that seat for a long time to come.